So all I'm doing in this video is going to be creating some instruments, loading in some sounds, adding in some effects, getting a template ready for a piece I have in mind, but we'll get to that later. I have sort of a default template in here right now. Just mute my input here. This is Energy XT, which is my digital audio workstation of choice. I use it all the time. It's really lightweight, opens really fast. I have a few subgroups in here, or submixes, or sums, or buses, whatever you want to call them. I have one for drums, percussion. I separate that out from drums because I like to process at them a little bit differently. I usually put a de-esser on my percussion, which I have here. So I will often route my hi-hats to percussion rather than the drum bus so that I can just compress the kick and the snare separately. So I'm processing the kick channel and the snare channel through the drum bus. I'll usually send toms through that as well. Anything other than that will go to the percussion bus. So I have it's basically separating it out into frequencies that I can control a little bit easier or more nuanced. So I can get more kind of bright, airy, crispy sounds that I'll route to the percussion bus, and more of the thumpy, heavier sounds I route to the drums. Then I have a bass channel, which all of my low end goes through the bass channel, not just bass. Sometimes I'll route cellos through this, or horns, sometimes sound effects. I have one for synths, which really is just like mid-range instruments, and I've just called it my synth bus, but that's all mid-range instruments. So guitars, strings, anything like that. Pads will go to synths usually. Because I have right now a 60 hertz roll off, so I'm rolling off low end below 60 hertz on the synths. I'll do EQing on each channel separately, but I really don't want any low end in that bus group. So it helps me quickly get a mix going really, really fast. I can do a lot less per channel by routing it this way. Then I have one for effects. If I do something with Joanna or something that has vocals, I'll just add a vocal bus and treat it the same way. So all my vocals go to that channel before it gets to the master. The other thing I'm going to do in this video is update this template. I have GSat Max, which is a limiter and tape saturation emulation plugin. Very, very simple. I have it set right now on a threshold of 3 dB of gain, so it's compressing anything that hits 3 decibels or above, adding compression. And then this has a drive knob, which is really, really great. And this is the tape emulation, or the saturation that it's adding, which does help with perceived loudness. And I'm just going to turn this down to 4. 5 is a little bit aggressive. I was using 5 for more rock type stuff, and those were the settings that I also used for all of the tracks that I put out for the Raven project, which were a lot more aggressive. So I wanted more saturation. I wanted them to be loud and really hit, and even if they distorted, I didn't mind that. So, but that is coming after also another sort of tape emulation, another saturation. So all of these processes that I have already set up in this template are for mixing and routing purposes. So once I get instruments loaded in, they will push that audio through all of these devices, and that essentially emulates, in my case, a very budget-friendly and kind of an old-school sound. I'm trying to get more of the SSL, old tape emulation, multi-track recording console, desk consoles, that kind of sound. But it also basically, I don't do any mastering almost never after the fact. So my mix is mastered as soon as it's done. That's how I've got this set up. And the way that I've done that is mostly with compression, saturation, limiting, and I do have an EQ on here that I'm using a dynamic equalizer, so it will boost things above 5K, and then I'm pulling off anything above 40,000 hertz. I have a little bit of a roll off in the low end, 15 hertz. I could probably get away with even more roll off and get even a louder mix, but I'd also wanted this to be a very versatile template. So that's how I've got things set up in here. I have a few drum channels set up in this template, which I leave in the template even if I change the sounds, because it's really, really easy to change the sounds. So I've got a basic kick. These are all sounds that I've created. A snare channel. I can add as many sounds as I want to these channels, to these drum channels. A clap. couple of claps in there. This is what it looks like. Hi-hats. And right now these are white noise, pink noise mixture. They're hi-hats again that I've created using synthesizers. Rendered them out as audio WAV files and then brought them into Energy XT's sampler tracks this way. So I've got a couple of closed hi-hats, a couple of open hi-hats which are longer, and in the drum channels you can assign them to mute groups so that my closed hi-hat will gate my open hi-hats, and I've set that up already so I can change the sounds either from the sample library in Energy XT, or I can just pull them in from any window in Windows and drag and drop them right into these tracks. I have another track for cymbals, and I've set these up this way. I could actually put all of these sounds into one channel and just have one track for drums and treat it like a drum machine that way. But again, for routing purposes, I've set these up at separate channels. So I've got some rides and some crashes. Those are all going to the percussion bus. Hi-hats are going to the percussion bus. My clap is going to the percussion bus. My snare and my kick are going to the drums bus. Then a few other channels that have nothing on them right now. There's no other sound generators in here. No virtual synthesizers. No other audio set up in this template. But I can pull whatever device I want to use into these channels and start using them right away. So if I wanted just a basic electric bass guitar, I usually grab the forefront bass. This is one that me and Joanna have used a lot. You can put an amp modeler on it. And that's what it sounds like just right out of the box. And there's no settings on this thing at all. So that's just going through. Let me make sure I send it to the bass bus. So you can see that way over here on the right hand side, that's the bass, the sound coming through. It's routing to the bass bus, and the bass bus is routing to my output, which is the master channel, so that everything is going through this EQ, TDR Nova, Ferric TDS, which is the tape emulation, and then GSAT Max. That's it. Those three devices are really the only thing I have on that is the only thing I have on my master channel. It's just going through several other stages by going through the summing buses or the group buses or the auxiliary tracks. And on those, for example, for the bass, I just have a G Max, not the G Sat Max. This is just a limiter, and it's set to a very mild threshold. And if I want, I also have this tail filter 2, which will act as it will act as a side chain. Right now I have it set on 16th notes, and it's only ducking it just a little bit, and it just ducks it for that first 16th note, then it comes back up. That's more, again, for mixing purposes. It allows the kick to come through. The bass swells in extremely quickly, so you don't hear that it's being ducked. It just helps the transient of the kick punch through, and then you perceive the bass so that things can be louder. A couple of things I want to bring in here right now. I've got a preset, and also been trying to work with fewer devices, actually, so I might even go back. I'll just take this forefront bass off of here for a second. So I've been trying to work more efficiently, but also it starts to evolve my sound by doing this, by building in some limitations for myself and just using some of the basic things, like just a sampler with just one sample. You can create an instrument. So I've been doing that quite a bit for a lot of the music that I've been making, and that's kind of what I want to go for with this next template setup. I want a pad, or just an atmospheric, almost like a string, something I can play chords on, and I have a preset that we've used quite a bit here that we've created, which is actually from a very, very old, I think it's actually from the 70s. That's a sampler device, which is Fairlight, and it uses the samples that were used in the Fairlight, and it's a single monolithic sample. It's a long sample, and we've created loop points for it so that we can play that sample back. The Fairlight was used for movies like the first Terminator, It's got some history. Now this sample, I'm not sure where it came from or what Fairlight it came from. I found it online, and then we've augmented it, edited it, and we're using it now as in an incredibly simple way. So I'm just going to pull in the preset. Here it is. Here's what the waveform looks like. That's it. So you can see there's the loop points. X name WS. This is just what it was called when I found it. This is the sample on the Fairlight. The original note that I found was a D4 on the keyboard. So I've matched that so that now when I play it on the keyboard, it will be in tune with anything else that I play. And it almost has like this vocal quality to it. I'm going to take off the glide. I'm also going to turn the volume down to 90, just because when you play chords, it's stacking that one sample on top of itself. And then I'm going to route this to my synth bus. We'll turn the channel volume down here to about 75. I'm just going to put a G-Max on here and probably a reverb, but I can do that inside the sampler here. So I'm going to use the reverb inside the sampler. Give it a nice, maybe 60%. The other thing I want to do is just increase the attack so it swells in a little bit. A little bit more. Another thing I could do to make this more atmospheric is to bring the cutoff down. But I'm going to do that with a filter, so I'm just going to add a basic filter in here, put it before the G-Max, and then I have more control over it. This also allows me to automate it so that I can take it down to something like 20. Give it a little bit of Q, which is the resonance. And then I can EQ it right here in the channel inspector, and I'll leave it at 100. I just want to roll off the low end, not that much. And now we can turn the volume all the way back up. So there's my first sound for this new template. And I'll share more as I go.